everybody. I'm trying out a different recording setup tonight. A few different parameters that I have changed around in order to hopefully give you some better triggers and allow me some more flexibility in terms of not only how I record sounds for my soundscapes, but also for these more kind of traditional ASMR videos. So today, or should I say tonight, since it's extremely late actually, but I have tomorrow off work, so I get to catch up on some much needed ASMR video creation time. I thought it would be fun to talk a little bit about books. I've been getting back into reading quite a bit lately. Most of my spare time is spent playing video games or doing a whole bunch of other things with sound design and all that. But the world of fantasy has been calling me back, and so I thought it would be fun to pick up a few series that I've been meaning to check out over the years. But as it turns out, I didn't just stick with fantasy, but I also picked up a few non-fiction things as well as short stories that I've been wanting to read. In the non-fiction vein, I wanted to first talk about Night. It's a true story. It's a true account by, I'm guessing the name is pronounced Elie Wiesel, who was a Transylvanian resident. He was in a small town, I believe, called Siget. I probably butchered that, but that's alright. I just finished this one up, and basically it's the story, or rather the real life account of how he and his family and many of his friends from the town are taken to concentration camps. And well, you know what happened in concentration camps, so it's very gripping, oftentimes very sad, but it was a complete page turner for me because it was such a fascinating account of what it was like for a child to lose his innocence that way. So quickly, having to grow up and witness the death of his family and friends at the hands of the Nazis. And there he is. He has quite a way with words, and the descriptions are really well written and utterly haunting. I really highly recommend this book. It's come to my understanding that it's pretty standard for many high school reading lists, but it kind of flew under my radar, and I'm glad I got a chance to make up for lost time and read this. It's honestly the most effective thing I've ever read about the Holocaust. So, it's very sad, but I highly recommend it. It's a beautiful piece of writing. I hope you guys like this new cutting mat that I picked up. It makes a nice surface for not only focusing the camera properly because of all the nice little lines that are drawn out on it, but also it absorbs some of the more disturbing vibrations that occur when I'm moving things around here. Okay, next on the list, I just finished this up as well. It's Coraline by Neil Gaiman, and many people know this book because of the recent movie that came out, and I've heard that it's actually quite a bit different than the book, because specifically I think that the greatest criticism that I've heard of the movie is that Coraline is depicted as perhaps not as intelligent as she is in the book. If I had, well, I have many praises for how this book is written, but one of them is that Coraline is written as a character who is very believable and respectfully written. She's a little girl, and she does certain things and says certain things that I guess could be described as youthful indiscretions, and every little kid has to learn about those typical mistakes that we make early in life. But at the same time, she's very intelligent, very smart for her age, very resourceful. So it's a believable mixture of childish folly and intelligent, oftentimes very crafty actions that she takes against her main antagonists. My second big piece of praise for this book is all of the symbolism that Neil Gaiman has painstakingly crafted relating to toxic relationships with family members. And that's something that I have a lot of experience with, unfortunately, and maybe many of you do too. And if that's the case, why not give this book a spin? The movie's one thing. The book is really quite a bit more compelling, I think, for a number of different reasons. The general story, without spoiling anything major, is that Coraline is sort of unhappy with her family life. She perceives a lot of unfairness in her life, as many children do. So she happens upon I guess you could say, an alternate family. Just put it that way. It's essentially a ghost story with a big emphasis on psychological horror, lots of sort of psychedelic kind of scenes in here that almost remind me of H.P. Lovecraft, but also there's quite a bit of adventure, so it actually makes a pretty solid, scary children's book. And of course, Neil Gaiman would be behind something like that. Highly recommended. Next up on the list is one that I'm right in the middle of currently. It's The Perks of Being a Wallflower. As you can see, I have the edition that recently came out to kind of combine marketing with the film, starring Emma Watson. Of course, Emma Watson is best known for playing Hermione Granger in Harry Potter. This is a very different role for her. I really liked the movie. There are a lot of good things to say about it. Heather Feather actually pointed out that she was not a big fan of Emma Watson being cast in that role for a number of reasons. And actually, in hindsight, I agree with her. Especially after being about halfway through this book. I don't really think she was entirely appropriate for the role of Sam. Sorry about the train. What are you gonna do? So, I liked the movie well enough anyway that I wanted to read the book. Heather and a number of other people said that the book was the way to go. And I have to say that I agree wholeheartedly with them, having read much of it now. Essentially, the story is about a somewhat maladjusted kid named Charlie who has a mysterious past. I'll just call it that. I don't want to use any other descriptors about the characters because I really like the way that the information is revealed. So I'll leave that up to you to discover. But he has a mysterious past, and he makes some new friends, and it's all about this character, the main character, Charlie, kind of finding himself through his new friends, and kind of how they find out about his past and how they react to it, as well as all of his peculiarities in terms of his personality. And ultimately, what he needs to go through in order to wrangle with those demons. Really interesting stuff. I really like the movie, but this, even knowing the story now and reading the book, it's so much better. I recommend both. See the movie first, then read the book, because that way it just gets better, in my opinion, anyway. So, it's a fantastic book. It also makes pleasant noises. This particular edition has really nice pages in it, so it makes some cool sounds. So that's the perks of being a wallflower. Now, everything that I show you from here on out is going to be a new acquisition. Stuff that I just got from Amazon. And that's actually going to include an unboxing of some stuff that I just got in today. First, I'm going to show you what I got in yesterday. This is an edition of Heart of Darkness by Conrad. read Heart of Darkness for a college course, and I remember being profoundly inspired by it. This story, I think, had a big effect on even the kind of music and visual art that I liked. And I haven't read it for so long, but I realized that it was actually very influential on me, and I couldn't find the copy that I had in college. So I picked up a new one, and it's nice. It's a little bit ostentatious with the gold pages here, but it's kind of nice in its own right. I really like the cover art as well. You can kind of see it's a little bit abstract, but it's neat. And the Heart of Darkness is essentially about somebody going into the Congo, and meeting a military figure who has spent a great deal of his time amongst the native people and the native land, and he has developed quite the personality, and this forces the main character to take stock of his own sanity and his assumptions about himself, about humanity, and about the world. It's kind of dark stuff, if you didn't get that from the name, but it's a hell of a read. It's good stuff. And so many other books and movies and even video games are directly inspired by this story. It's a short read, and it's just packed with quality stuff. Very existential, reflective, oftentimes even cathartic writing. It's brilliant, in my opinion. It also makes some pretty good sounds. Probably end up triggering my own ASMR just turning the pages of this when I get around to reading it again. Okay. The next thing that I got in from Amazon yesterday is the first trilogy from Terry Goodkind, the Sword of Truth series. I love that cover art right there. It's good classic fantasy stuff. Yeah, so you can see here we've got Wizard's First Rule, Stone of Tears, and Blood of the Fold. And these came highly recommended to me by Esmeralda Silent Citadel, who, if you haven't seen her channel, I recommend subscribing to her immediately. she's got some wonderful ASMR videos. She does some wonderful crafting. She's quite an artist. And she makes great sounds. So here we go. This is what the Silent Citadel recommended that I read. I'm really looking forward to this. I've been reading some great reviews, and this is going to be, I think, right up my alley. I don't know too much about it, so there's not much I can describe other than to say that it's clearly, it's fantasy. But I really don't know what the general vibe is. I'll read the synopsis on the back of the first book, and maybe that will give us some idea. A legend begins in the aftermath of the brutal murder of his father. Richard Cypher encounters a mysterious woman, Colin Amnell, in his forest sanctuary. She seeks his help and more. His world, his very beliefs, are shattered when ancient debts come due with thundering violence. In their darkest hour, Colin calls upon Richard to reach beyond his sword, to invoke within himself something more noble. Neither knows that the rules of battle have just changed, or that their time has run out. This is the beginning. One book, one rule, witness the birth of a legend. So, fairly typical sounding setup for a fantasy series, which is a good thing for me. I tend to really go for traditional fantasy. I think there's a danger sometimes when you over-intellectualize high fantasy and try to kind of shoehorn very heady concepts into this genre. You really have to do that with a light touch. And I've heard that Good Kind does that a little bit here and there to great success, but mostly it's traditional. I've heard him often compared to Terry Brooks, who wrote the Shannara series, which is often lambasted by, say, the crowd at Goodreads, who I'm not sure if they even like books, because it seems like they hate everything. But for those of us who are not occupying that rarefied air of hyper-educated skepticism, I never thought I'd describe myself as the opposite of that, but here I am defending common fantasy. Who would have thought? But I think this might be a good way to go. I'll let you know after I read some of it. So that's the Sword of Truth trilogy. Now is the time in which we dance. No, I won't dance. Nobody wants to see that. But what I will do, instead of dancing, is an unboxing video for you. How about that? Here's my box from Amazon. This just came in today, and I do know what's in here, but I'll leave that as a surprise for when I open it up. It's some more books, some more stuff for my spring reading list. Let's dig in and see what's going on here. It's exciting stuff. I actually got the hardcover versions of a couple of books of a series that I have a lot of respect for. Okay, wonderful. Here's the first. Thing that I got today. This is the Mistborn trilogy by Bryan Sanderson. Gotta love the absolutely wonderful 70s and 80s style high fantasy art. I'm such a traditionalist when it comes to that stuff. This is my favorite kind of fantasy art style. I don't know too much about this trilogy. It was highly recommended to me. And what ended up causing me to pull the trigger on this was that I heard that this series has a fantastic system of magic, and I am such a nerd for that kind of stuff. I absolutely love seeing how fantasy authors wrangle with creating unique systems of magic in their worlds. It's one thing for a rank amateur to just create a system that allows, let's say, a wizard to cast spells infinitely without any regard for limited resources or energy. But it's quite another thing to craft a system that's both understandable to the reader and also takes into account some sort of helpful limitation to the resources of the spellcaster, such that it gives rise to some interesting opportunities in the fiction to deal with what happens when you can't cast your spells anymore. Or, for instance, how hard is it to cast one spell that's insanely powerful versus another fairly common one? I'll go ahead and unwrap this. So here we go. The first one is predictably called Mistborn. I'm going to read the synopsis on the back here. Once a hero arose to save the world. A young man with a mysterious heritage courageously challenged the darkness that strangled the land. He failed. For 1,000 years since, the world has been a wasteland of ash and mist, ruled by the immortal emperor known as the Lord Ruler. Every revolt has failed miserably. Yet somehow hope survives. Hope that dares to dream of ending the empire and even the Lord Ruler himself. A new kind of uprising is being planned, one built around the ultimate caper, one that depends on the cunning of a brilliant criminal mastermind and the determination of an unlikely heroine, a street urchin who must learn to master allomancy, the power of a Mistborn. So now we know allomancy is the kind of magic we're talking about here, and I'm already fascinated just off the synopsis. The use of the word caper I find particularly compelling because I love heists. I'm all about Ocean's 11, so if they can give me some Ocean's 11 set in a sort of medieval-esque high fantasy world where criminals are ironically the anti-heroes. I know it's been done before, but what can I say? I know my preferences. I think I might have a good time with this series. I'm looking forward to it greatly. Okay, the last couple of books I want to show you are two books out of what is planned to be, by the author, a trilogy. I got the hardcover. The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I've actually read this book before, and it is brilliant, in my opinion, if you like fantasy. Much like what I was talking about with the Mistborn trilogy, I'm so into the systems of magic, and I use that in big scare quotes, specifically in reference to the Name of the Wind, because Rothfuss takes great pains to liken the kind of magic in this book more to a science rather than something that's supernatural. And his descriptions of the way different elements work in order to be kind of combined together in sympathy, with the result of some really cool effects, it's great. The writing is fantastic, and of course the characters are well developed, and the story has one foot in the world of traditional fantasy and another foot in something entirely different, and it's just an extremely compelling mix. It's great. That's all I can say. Just check it out if you're looking for some good fantasy. Now, to go along with that, I picked up The Wise Man's Fear. I have not read this one yet, but I have to, because the first one was amazing, and I'm finally getting around to reading some more of this series. And he has a third one, I believe, in the works, so I look forward to getting that as well. These books, by the way, are collectively called the Kingkiller Chronicles, or the Kingkiller Chronicle, singular, sorry. And the reason it's called a chronicle is because it's told partially through flashbacks, which are being written down by a character who's actually called Chronicler. And it's all really well put together. I like the way that Rothfuss utilizes that flashback device in his books. He does it in a way that is just extremely satisfying. I guess that would be the word that I'd use. So I'm actually going to reread Name of the Wind before everything that you've seen here. I'm going to finish up Perks of Being a Wallflower. Then I'm going to reread Name of the Wind. Then I'm going to hit Wise Man's Fear. And then I'm going to get into tackling the Sword of Truth in the Mistborn trilogies. Not necessarily in that order. I hope you guys like this video. I like talking about the stuff that I'm currently into at any one point. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope also if you have any good recommendations for books that you like, any genre, it doesn't matter, non-fiction, fiction, anything. I'm always looking for autobiographies, historical accounts. I like science reading as well, and really anything. Just recommend it. Just freeball it, because I'm just way into reading right now. So I will see you for the next video, where I will probably be unboxing some more candy and possibly some Easter related items. Have a good night, everyone.